broadcasting, I think. Just waiting for the confirmation that the show went live. And we are back! Hello and welcome to No Direction, episode 163, Amanda's Guide to Gen Con. I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and our special co-host for today is...
Me, Alexander Agunas, the Everyman Gamer.
Thanks for coming on the show. For those of you who are wondering where Ryan is, he is just celebrating the birth of his brand new baby girl, and so he will not be able to join us. I'm sure he will have a lot more to say about that when he comes back on the show the week after Gen Con, but if you could, give him the best well wishes and congratulations. But
I don't know if you heard, but he was like super convinced that I was trying to plan a coup, and that's why I was here.
Oh goodness, that's totally not what's happening. Not what's happening.
I know. Everybody knows that if anyone was going to coup No Direction, it would be Param. Param's the only one with the skills to do it.
I object to this assertion and assault on my character. All right, but today is called Amanda's Guide to Gen Con because we are joined by the ever-popular, the ever-talented, and the ever-busy Amanda Hamon Kunz. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Param. Alex, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
We have wanted you on the show for a long time, and just getting the schedule to line up has been a nightmare. So we are super glad not only to have you on the show, but to have you on probably one of our most important episodes, the pre-Gen Con episode, where we will participate in wild speculation.
Yay, Gen Con!
Yay! Now, for an audience not familiar, can you explain what you do for Paizo?
Sure. So, my title is Development Coordinator, and that is a very new position at Paizo. We did not have a Development Coordinator before. But essentially, to go back to the beginning, explain why this position exists. When Wes Schneider left the company earlier this year before PaizoCon, his duties ended up getting split into two pieces. So one of those pieces is managing developer, which is Adam Daigle. I know you're familiar with Adam.
Mm-hmm.
He is handling the personnel end of Wes's duties and a lot of like running up and down the different management aspects of the different departments and things like that. A lot of administrative type of things Adam is handling. And then the other half of Wes's job became the development coordinator, which is what I am. And my job is exactly like it sounds. It's coordinating all of the development for Pathfinder and a little bit for Starfinder as well. It is looking at all of the different lines that we produce and lining up development resources with all of our developers at Paizo with those products and getting everything on track and working with teams of folks who are on other departments for the editorial side. So editing and the art department and designers and getting everybody on board for becoming a team for each product and approaching everything as a project basis instead of everything sort of as a whole, and catch as catch can, assigning people to things as they're available. We wanted to make things a little bit more cohesive and a little more holistic as far as our resources. So I am 50% developing things just like I was doing before, developing player companions, campaign settings, whatever projects I'm the lead on, and 50% coordinating all of the teams, putting everything together, creating very interesting things like tracking resources for Google Docs and setting up meetings in which everybody brainstorms for what art and what editing concerns there might be, and how we can convey certain things that we want to do to our artists and things like that, getting everybody on the same page. So I have a lot going on.
It sounds like you have a lot. It sounds like you're going to have a little bit of part in quite literally every product at this point with that role?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that is correct.
That has got to be an intimidating responsibility.
It's a lot, and I mentioned tracking resources. That's a thing that I've been doing across all of our lines. So we have big Google documents that have dates for each step of the process. Everything from outlining the product to having James Jacobs, our creative director, if it's a Pathfinder book, review that outline, to getting it assigned to writers, to doing their contracts, to doing the art order for the books, getting the writers, feedback for their milestones, for their partial turnovers, and doing the actual development of the book, and then doing all of the back end steps as well. So all of the stuff that you don't necessarily think about as being involved in developing a player companion or a campaign setting book, or hardcover like planner, different books that we're doing in the future. All of those have those resources assigned to them, and all of those are sort of in the wheel of all of the different things that we're tracking and assigning and making sure everything stays on point right now.
So you're like the planning ghost in the golem, so to speak?
A little bit, yeah, and a lot of it is, just a lot of meetings with folks, a lot of me sitting down and looking at calendars and planning out dates and communicating with people and, asking them whether that's realistic. I've been the lead developer on a lot of the player companions and campaign setting books for the past 6 months into 2018, and so that part makes it easy because then I just put a date and say, okay, I have to stick to this date. So a lot of it is just me setting goals for myself, but beyond that, there are a lot of different things involved when you have, multiple developers on a book, when you have, design people who, are in and out being the consultants on certain subsystems. That might just be one little piece of one book, but it's still something we want them to review. So, there's just so many moving parts, and in the past it has been difficult for us to produce the volume that we do without having somebody there to help keep track and to help, pick up the slack and to just make sure that all of it happens at the dates that it needs to happen, that we hit our printer deadlines.
So here's a crazy question then. Do you have any say on what gets put onto that schedule? Like, are you thinking, wow, I'd really like to develop this awesome elemental book, I better make sure this happens?
I do a little bit. Those are group decisions that happen with a group of Paizo managers, including, Eric Mona being at the top of that as the publisher. But, we had a big pool of ideas to pick from when it came to the 2018 schedule. And so there was a factor of, okay, we know that this person has development capacity for this period of time. There's a book that needs to be dealt with during that period of time. Hey, James Jacobs, what book do you want to work on the most out of this list? And then putting that into the schedule so that we're not forcing people to work on books that they either aren't invested in, or they feel like they don't know something about that subject, or they'd rather be working on something else. That's a really big piece of why I was put into the position that I was, because we wanted to avoid being very reactionary with our schedule and, just having to shove developers onto books because they needed to go out. We wanted them to be things that we were all passionate about, and not that we weren't, but we wanted to be more just prescriptive about how we were approaching it, as opposed to, just having somebody work on something for a little bit and then go off to something else and then come back to it and finish it. And, that's just not really good for the creative process. That's not really good for morale, frankly. And it's, it's just not ideal. So we knew that we could get ourselves out of that, but we needed somebody there to put those pieces together.
Now, speaking of deadlines and pieces coming together, Gen Con is right around the corner. Ooh. Is this like your Super Bowl, or are you so far in the future that all your Gen Con worries happened last year?
Oh no, Gen Con is absolutely our Super Bowl. It is a little bit like coming back to some of the books that we worked on, because the things that are releasing are, of course, things that we finished up and shipped several months ago. But we always know that Gen Con is coming. Gen Con is once a year, right around the same time period, pretty much always in August. We all keep an eye on, what's going to be our big Gen Con release. And the schedule is, frankly, it revolves around Gen Con a lot. We want a big thing to be out at Gen Con. We want people to be excited about something we're producing. We want all of our creatives to be excited about something that we're producing. And of course for us, that this year it's Starfinder, right? We want everybody to be hyped about Starfinder coming out. We want, all of our design team members and everybody who worked on Starfinder to be able to finally be able to talk about everything that's in Starfinder, because it was, it was secret until now. So Gen Con is absolutely, especially this year, but always in years past, is a huge deal for us.
Awesome.
It sounds kind of like that you get to stand on top of the Paizo building wearing a dire wolf cloak, a big broadsword, going, Gen Con is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a huge deal. I mean, for all of us who, not everybody like loves Gen Con, but for me, Gen Con has always been a thing that I really enjoyed going to. This year will be, my 12th year in a row attending Gen Con. We usually, we have family out in the Midwest within driving distance of Gen Con, so since we've moved out to Seattle, we come back and stay either a little bit before or a little bit after, and we see folks. So, it really is the cornerstone of the year. And, and it's the nerd mecca, right? It's the place where everybody comes. And, on the professional side, you get to see, folks that you haven't seen maybe for a whole year or longer if they didn't come to the previous years. And it's just it's a big gathering of folks who really enjoy spending time with each other, and for fans to come and talk to us, and for us to get to talk to fans and see, what their feedback on our product is just really special.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of the big release of Gen Con, before you got your new position, you're actually really involved with Starfinder, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I was on the core design team for Starfinder. I worked on it almost the entire time I came in, I believe, during the second month of the design cycle. So there's a little bit of preliminary work done on classes, a little bit of preliminary work done on the economy, but not much. I was basically involved from pretty much the very beginning.
So what parts of Starfinder can we look forward to seeing your fingerprints on?
Sure. So I wrote all of the new spells that you'll find in the spells chapter of Starfinder. Yeah, so it was 10,000 words, so it's not a small portion of the book, but the spells chapter has a lot of converted spells from Pathfinder, so you'll recognize, Magic Missile as being something that shows back up in Starfinder. Of course, it works differently. It's now a scaling spell, but, there are things that we intended to be like homages and callbacks to Pathfinder, things that Pathfinder fans would recognize as a core piece of the role-playing game that they're familiar with. But we also really wanted there to be new, shiny, fancy things that were very science fantasy, that were very thematic to the type of game that we were making. And so that was my assignment. And that was actually before I was moved full-time onto the design team. So it was really my first big jump into the Starfinder pool. So there's everything in there from, spells that have the word junkabot in them, and it's all about, being a technomancer and making a big pile of junk into something that's useful. There's the healing junkbot that helps you, heal your wounds and stabilize. There's a repairing one that is about fixing up, mechanical things. And then there's battle junkbot, which I think became sort of a stealth favorite of a couple folks in the office, that is literally making a murder machine out of a bunch of junk. So there's all kinds of unique and new things that I sort of sat down with a list before I started that assignment and made a wish list of all the cool things I wanted to be able to do in the game as a magic user, as a magical hacker or a mystical caster. No. And just pulled from there. And of course, I didn't even have enough room to come up with spells for all of the ideas that I had. But there's some key ones in there that I hope folks will really like.
Sweet.
And hey, you're making all the schedules now, right? So if you want to make them, I'm sure that you can figure out a way to sneak them in.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually make the schedules. I more make sure that the schedule happens. But, there could be a possibility.
Now, I want to remind our audience that, yes, we have an audience. No Direction is filmed live on Twitch every other Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And our live audience is very important. If you have any questions during the show that you want answered, please speak up. We will periodically go through the questions that appear in chat and ask them. And specifically right now is your chance to ask Amanda all sorts of questions. You'll get to talk to me and Alex plenty later. But if you got questions for us, we just want questions. You help make the show unpredictable, and that always helps. All right. So Alex,
I'm sorry. You mentioned that you had a lot of books that you took and you put together. How many of the books that are coming out at Gen Con this year have your fingerprints on them? I mean, we know the core rule book, but...
Sure, yeah. Quite a lot. So the stuff that's coming out now is all stuff that predates my new position by a little bit of time. So I wasn't actually doing the team management and the team meetings and brainstorming and stuff that I was talking about. I didn't really start doing that until products that will be out there will be one out in December of this year, and then the rest of them are all 2018 products. But I was, let's see, just going down the list, Elemental Master's Handbook, which is a release for Gen Con, and it's a subscription for August. I was the code lead developer on that with Ron Lundeen, who you guys probably know is a long time, Pathfinder author, and for a period of time did some freelance development for us as well. So I'm excited about Elemental Master's Handbook. There's some really cool stuff in there. I think our authors and Ron did just a great job of covering just a huge breadth of concepts and types of player options that really fall into that Elemental Masters niche, and are certainly really good for anybody who's playing scenarios in the Pathfinder Society season that dealt a lot with the elemental planes, which was
the Storm Summoner is so beautiful.
Oh yeah. Do you have yours right now?
I do. Do you want to see it?
Great.
I have one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. Now, this is an important thing to say is we're talking about a lot of these products that are coming out at Gen Con. A lot of subscribers have already gotten the PDFs, if not their shipped products. So, there's some things are leaking and some exciting things are being discussed around. But, officially from No Direction Stance, besides Alex holding up that book, the stuff comes out at Gen Con.
I thought that was a July release. I'm confused.
No, it's August.
Oh. Why do I have this
subscription?
Subscriptions went out kind of early.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I didn't know that. I thought it was July. My bad. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to spoil for you.
That's all right.
But it's definitely one of the books I'm looking forward to reading. I mean, I've always the players' companions are always some of my favorite books that you guys produce.
Yeah, there's just a lot of different little pieces. I mean, the player companions over the past couple of years have just become more and more and more packed with different types of rules elements and a lot of diversity in, it's not just always archetypes, it's not just always spells and items. There's rogue talents and kineticist wild talents, and all kinds of just little class features, vigilante talents and stuff like that that are really keyed into the theme of the book. And so it's been really fun and challenging from a developer standpoint and a designer standpoint, and making sure that we are hitting that sweet spot of, giving people stuff that they're looking for, but not only focusing on one thing.
So that actually made me come up with another question. You mentioned earlier that part of your job is to make sure that people get book topics that they feel like they know, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that is the ideal.
So do you think then that, like, for your job, you need to be, like, extremely familiar with everything that Paizo comes out with?
Yeah, I sort of do. And, I think that one of the reasons that I got this job was because I have worked across so many different lines. I've been at Paizo for less than 3 years, but, I've been lead developer on every single type of book that we've produced except for a rules hardcover, in which I've actually done a lot of writing for most of the rules hardcovers that have come out in the past couple of years. And so I feel like I really had a good handle on not only what the mission of the different lines were, but actually what the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts were in each of those different types of books, and what it took to actually produce those books, because I had actually been lead developer and, outlined and seen them from start to finish, that it was just sort of a natural fit to go into this type of job. It feels like an extension of what I had been doing for quite a while already.
Does this make you, like, the bard of the staff?
Maybe,
able to do everything, go everywhere, versatile with all things? I
don't know. I mean, we have a lot of folks who are really talented and very versatile as well. So, right place, right time, perhaps.
All right. Do you want to take a question from the audience?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Sweet. Ask a Pathfinder asks, that's ironic, what is your favorite Starfinder feature?
My favorite Starfinder feature. So, I really like the Technomancer class, and probably that is because I really, even going back to my early days, really enjoyed playing magic users in Pathfinder and other fantasy role-playing games, and the Technomancer just really feels like it is that sweet spot of a class that, is a magic user, but is futuristic and fits into the sci-fi setting naturally. They're a technopath, they are able to affect technology in supernatural ways, but they also have just deep knowledge of, computers and hacking, and it's much easier for that class to get into the new computer hacking subsystem that we have in Starfinder, and to work with or disable or affect, robots and constructs and creatures like that. They're a very unique niche of a class that I feel like just speaks well to me personally, because I really like those type of characters. So I probably would say the Technomancer. Yeah, especially because we were able to work in a lot of cool things into their class that did sort of make that a natural progression. Like there's the thing called magic hacks, which are essentially metamagic feats, but instead of being a feat that you have to pick, through spell or through character progression or the like, it's actually a class feature, and you get certain magic hacks, so many as you advance, and they essentially affect your spells like metamagic feats do.
So it's sort of like Arcane Discoveries?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. But it certainly feels a lot more baked into the setting than it would be if you just ported over a wizard into Starfinder.
Okay.
If you were a Technomancer, how would you want to hack your spells?
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably take like maybe Extend Spell, which is a pretty good one. There's like a Heighten Spell type of magic hack that's pretty good. I'd probably do things just to make my spells stronger and more effective.
I would want to hack my sniper rifles, assuming I can get a sniper rifle.
Yes, we have sniper rifles in the game, and there's also a Technomancer spell called Supercharged Weapon, which essentially lets you go up to your buddy and touch their weapon, and they do an extra 4d6 on the next shot.
Well, that's
so you could totally do that.
Nice. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna enjoy describing the visuals of a lot of this. Okay. So
absolutely.
So let's go into the product releases, starting with Starfinder. So what at Gen Con, what's releasing for Starfinder?
All right, so we have a whole mess of stuff being released for Starfinder at Gen Con. It's the launch of the game and the system. So, of course, we've got the core rulebook, and I should mention that at Gen Con, not only will we be selling all of our Starfinder products in the main booth, which you can't miss. It's huge. It's in the corner of the convention hall right when you walk in. But there will also be a table, a credit card only table upstairs. If you're going to Gen Con and you know where the Sagamore Ballroom is, it's right around the corner there. And we'll be selling all of the Starfinder stuff for as long as supplies last. So if you just want to get in and get out, get your Starfinder stuff without, waiting through the long line at the main Paizo booth, that will be the place for you to go, especially early on. Okay. So we've got the core rulebook. We have got Starfinder Adventure Path number 1, which is Incident at Absalom Station. That is the first volume of the Dead Sun's Adventure Path. And that does indeed take place beginning at Absalom Station, which is the place that replaced Galarian in its spot in the solar system. Galarian has disappeared, and there's a space station in its place called Absalom Station. So I don't want to spoil too much, but it has to do with an asteroid that's been towed there, and a lot of rival groups trying to figure out what's going on and get a hold of this thing. Because it has a lot of implications, and so that is Incident at Absalom Station kicking off our first Starfinder Adventure Path.
So we've got that.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I like that it's understated. This isn't like the crisis at Absalom Station or the emergency. This is the incident.
Yes, it is an incident that turns out to get pretty hairy and, launch off into a 6-volume adventure path. So. But it is interesting, and it is meant to be sort of a more nitty-gritty, street-level view of what Absalom Station is like and what Starfinder is like and what are some of the rival factions. And, what is it like racing through the streets of Absalom Station, on a hover bike being chased by a whole bunch of Yosoki gang members? How do your PCs need to respond to that? And how are they going to end up getting a starship? How are they going to end up advancing in their mission. And one of the interesting things about the Adventure Path is that it uses, Starfinder Society as sort of like the quest giving type of group, the main liaison, if you will, from the PCs. Sort of getting their missions and getting all of a bunch of information as they need to go off on later volumes of the adventure path to advance the story. But it introduces Starfinder Society to players, and there's some key NPCs that will show back up in Starfinder Society, and so it's all really very organic and meshed together.
That's cool. I think it took the Pathfinder line until Shattered Star to get the Pathfinders in an AP, right?
Right, yeah, the Pathfinders weren't really involved in adventure paths for a long time, and so because Starfinder Society is so important to us and we're offering a whole bunch of really cool stuff at Gen Con for Starfinder Society, we really wanted that to be, from the beginning, a very natural part of the setting.
So, I mean, obviously you can't, tell us long-term plans, but do you envision the Starfinder Society playing more of a role in the Starfinder APs than the Pathfinder Society does in the Pathfinder APs, or is this, a really happy coincidence?
I think it was intentional because we did really want to, emphasize that Starfinder Society is a very important organization, and they're in the core rulebook, and there's a write-up and all of that. So we wanted to make sure that people who played Starfinder Society didn't feel like they were just participating in this small organization that didn't really, have a stake in anything in the solar system. So I think you'll probably see Starfinder Society play a bigger role in adventure paths going forward, and what that role will be, we don't know yet, but I do think that it is going to be more significant.
That sounds smart.
Now, we haven't got a chance to really talk about the adventure path. We definitely don't want to spoil it, especially on an episode like this. But what genre would you consider this sci-fi story? Is this space opera? Is this noir? I mean, where does it fit in? What's it most similar to?
It's definitely space opera. We really wanted to showcase the world hopping aspect of the Starfinder campaign setting, and the fact that it takes place on all kinds of planets, and that it's about exploring space and making contact with alien races, and balancing some of the opposing forces in the universe and that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of planet hopping in the first adventure path. The volume that I wrote is the third adventure path, and it actually takes place in 3 specific areas, and they're not all planets, but they are all essentially different parts of the solar system, that some of them are planets and some of them are more, there's an asteroid, but they are all about getting pieces of information being led to a certain location, and then adventuring on that location and figuring out what's next. So it is definitely space opera.
Sounds like the starship's going to get a lot of use. Will it also get a lot of combat use?
Yeah, there's a lot of starship combat. That was another piece of the system that we really wanted to show off, and then we felt like the adventure path was a good place to do that. So there's starship combat in all 3, 4, probably all volumes, but at least the first 3 that I'm familiar with right now.
I just really think that this adventure path is super important for a lot of different reasons. It's going to be with Pathfinder, you at least had decades of precedence on this is what a fantasy role-playing game is supposed to play like. These are what good adventures look like. And plus you had 18 issues of Pathfinder, the adventure path, to back up expectations.
Yeah.
Nobody knows quite. I mean, a bunch of people know, but for a vast majority of our audience, they don't know quite what does it really mean to play Starfinder. What's the Starfinder adventure look like? How are we supposed to experience the flavor? What is this going to work like? And the APs and the adventures, especially the very first one, is going to be basically your whole sales pitch for the experience. And I don't know that that's a question, but hey, that's one of the reasons I'm having a lot. I'm putting a much stronger eye on that release than I am some of the others. But it's not the only other release.
Hey, if that's not a question, though, we have one from the audience. Ask a Pathfinder wants to know, I don't know if this is something you're going to be able to answer, but I'll ask you. Ask a Pathfinder wants to know, what happened to Kate and Kayleen?
So he's still around. There are still a lot of gods that are around, but because in the core rulebook and in Inner Sea Gods for Pathfinder, we focus on the core 20, Well, that's by volume of worship, right? So the core 20 is the core 20 because those are the most commonly worshipped gods in the inner sea area, right? And Starfinder is the same way, but Starfinder is the entire solar system, the Pact World system, right? It's not just one planet or one region on a planet. So, of course, the population looks a lot different across the entire solar system. So the gods that are most commonly worshipped are going to be a lot different. And that's why you'll see, there are some gods in Starfinder that were part of the Pathfinder Core 20 that haven't really changed very much. They are just, of course, worshipped in a different way because it's the future. But there are other gods that didn't go anywhere and, nothing really happened to them, but they are more of a humanocentric or more of a Galarian-centric deity, and so they're just not part of the Core 20 in Starfinder, and Kading Kaleen is one of those.
I did like the Paizo Con joke answer that he was just passed out drunk for the past millennia in Shaylin's line.
Yeah. We tried to pitch writing that in the setting chapter, but for some reason kept getting shot down, so headcanon. We're just going to have to really get it to headcanon. Mm-hmm.
So, other products.
Yes, so other Starfinder products, we've got Starfinder AP number 1, we've got the core rulebook, we have a GM screen that is coming out at Gen Con, and it's gorgeous. It's got beautiful art that shows all of the iconics across a scene that takes place on all of the panels. So if you stretch out the whole GM screen, you can see this amazing, gorgeous art piece. And I really encourage folks to come by the booth and just check it out because, once you see that art, it's... I personally don't really like using GM screens because I don't really like the barrier between me and the players, but I just ran Starfinder over the weekend for some friends of ours, and I used the GM screen because just everybody was so amazed by the art. So it just really adds to the experience. So we've got the GM screen, we've got a player character folio, which is very similar to the player character folio for Pathfinder. It's got the character sheets and it's got places for recording all the different details about your character. We have the core rulebook pawn collection, which is a lot of the just amazing art that you'll see throughout the core rulebook in pawn form. So we've got a whole bunch of course, different versions of the core races. I think we did each of the core races with all of the classes except for maybe one, and it's just the class that doesn't match as well with that race. So, but we've also got, different themes that are in there. If you're familiar with themes for Starfinder, they're kind of like character traits for Pathfinder. It gives you a little bit of a background of your character and a small ability score bonus to reflect that. So art for all of the different themes, all the races and all the classes. We've got a few monsters here and there for folks as they're going to start to need monsters for their pawns and their games. And starships and just a whole array of things. It's a really great pawn set. Again, I just used it over the weekend, and it just went over so well because they just look so great.
So I don't know if you can answer this, but I think starship combat happens on hexes, right?
Yes, that is correct, yeah.
So are there like hex bases in the pawn set for the starships if that they're...
No, they're not. They just use the little... I could be wrong, but I think they just use the circular bases that you're used to. And the hexes are about the same size as a square. They're just shaped differently, right? So you can still just kind of move them, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah. Because of moving between hex games and square games is the reason that I very much distaste anytime I'm forced to base a mini on a square base. So the pawns do work great for 1-inch hex grids.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, they fit a little bit better, even like you were saying, than the square grid. So let's see. In addition to that, we've got a Starfinder combat pad. And so if you're familiar with the Pathfinder combat pad, it's a very similar board with a bunch of magnetic strips for the characters, and it's dry erase. It's wet erase, actually. I guess you could use it for dry as well. And then you can, record people's initiative and move it around and everything. And it's super useful, and it looks beautiful. It's branded, Starfinder, so it's got all of that layout with the blue and yellow or blue and orange logo. And the wrap is cool because I'm excited that my Yasuki Technomancer pedal is named on there as one of the PCs, and I actually did not know that was happening until it released, and I found out Jason Keeley, I think, did that, so that was cool.
That does sound really cool.
Yeah, that's great. So let's see, we've also got 2 flip mats that are coming out for Starfinder. at Gen Con, we've got Flip Map Basic Starfield, which is Starfield with Nebula, and then more like sort of object-less side, so that you don't have a bunch of barriers and stuff. But that's the hexes, and then we have Starfinder Flip Map Basic Terrain, with one side that is sort of just like a generic metal looking base that you can draw maps on. It's really good for drawing dungeons, really good for drawing just battle maps in general. So that's a square grid, and then the other side of that is, I believe, like the top of an asteroid. It's sort of like a rocky terrain, like an alien terrain. Yeah. So that's our Starfinder stuff.
You all need to release like a pack of space asteroids where you just get gravel from the back parking lot and just put it in bags.
Yeah, right. That'd be pretty great.
It's like Crazy Bones. You're like, there's an asteroid field coming at your starship. Flick, flick, flick.
Flick, 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 flick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd probably do that. And then everybody would roll their eyes and be like, we get it. You don't need to flick us.
Yeah, I guess getting started, not a lot of players are going to have like a strong selection of sci-fi appropriate support material. I know I'm definitely going to have to bulk up all my miniatures, the starships. I'm going to need all new pads. I'm going to need all new maps. I mean, good grief, just like a complete shift in genre this radical is going to take a lot. And I've already basically raided my my local gaming store supply of Star Wars RPG stuff, and that stuff is gone like that right now. And good grief, have you seen the prices going for some of those Star Wars maps that's right now? I mean, everybody's wanting sci-fi everything, so I'm super glad that there's a lot of support material.
Yeah, we wanted
starships.
We wanted to release as much GM-facing types of material just for that specific reason, because we know there's going to be a very large player base for Starfinder that's coming from Pathfinder or other fantasy role-playing games, and like you said, they're not going to have a base collection of things that make sense, and so we just wanted to start out the gate with as many things as possible, as many things as we could humanly produce on the schedule that we had to help people be able to create an immersive science fantasy game, especially folks who are not used to playing in that genre.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you did a pretty good job to me. Listening to all the things you went off, I think the only thing from Pathfinder you didn't update that I have is the condition cards.
We are doing that later.
Oh!
Yeah, I saw that on the schedule. I didn't know if it was a Gen Con release or not, but yeah, the condition cards are...
but they're done.
Yeah, they're like
they're
one
to
of
the printer.
my favorite things.
Yeah. They are great. They have little goblins on them, and they've got, of course, all the conditions for Starfinder, which is, just really practically useful, from a pragmatic standpoint, because the conditions in Starfinder are different, and some of them are named the same and work slightly differently, and so, it's going to be just so helpful to be able to just put the card down and not have to remember, that flat-footed is something, a little different than it is in Pathfinder, for example.
Now, speaking of Pathfinder, Starfinder's obviously the belle of the ball this year, but what are our Pathfinder fans going to be looking forward to at your Gen Con?
Absolutely. We have a great slate of Pathfinder releases this year. We've got Adventure Path Volume number 121, The Lost Outpost. That is the first volume of the Ruins of Aslan Adventure Path. That's been one that fans have been asking for a long time, and it's set in ancient Aslan, and you essentially are part of an expedition going to old Aslan, and that's how the adventure path kicks off. So that is under the watchful eye of Adam Dago, managing developer and also Adventure Path developer. So he's got, I've seen some of the art, and it's amazing. So we've got that.
And he's in chat right now. So, hi, Adam.
Oh,
we're talking about
Adam.
you. Your ears got red, I'm sure.
Your Adventure Path is great. Thank you for bringing my business cards to Gen Con. So we've got Lost Outpost, Ruins of Aslan number 1. We've got Elemental Master's Handbook, which I had mentioned a little bit before. We've got some maps. We've got map pack and village sites, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's little village, shacks and a little town sort of on the different panels of the map pack. And then we have Flip Mat Cavernous Lair, which is one side has got a cavern layer for at least large-sized monsters, so those creatures will fit in there because they're layering in there. And then on the other side, it's a rocky hill or mountain slope that is leading up into the cavern. So you start on one end of that, you go all the way through it. There's a bunch of little adventure vignettes that you, as the GM, can place encounters on, or there's one adventure that actually uses that map so far, and that's actually coming out. We'll talk about that later. But then you get to the end of the hillside there, and then you go into the cavern. So it's really meant to be continuously useful throughout a whole adventure, or however you'd like to plug it into your campaign. And so I think that's about it for Pathfinder, except for the module that I mentioned, which is not actually part of the subscription releases because it was a special partnership with Gen Con and a company called Games and Gears, and that is Pathfinder module Heroes for High Delve.
Okay, so what is special about this one?
So Heroes for High Delve is an adventure that I wrote that is a celebration of Gen Con's 50th anniversary. And so this module takes place on Galarian in the Pathfinder campaign setting. It takes place in Brevoy, if you're familiar with that area. So a very, high fantasy setting. There's a lot of dragons there. It's a very cold type of location. But it actually uses pre-generated characters, and these are first level pre-generated characters, and those pre-gens are the Gen Con iconics that if you've been to the show for the past 4 or 5 years, they've been using on all of their marketing materials, all of their program books. They're on the banners, they're on the websites. These are characters that you will recognize if you've seen any of Gen Con's promotional art. So, it was really exciting for me to be able to get to work with Gen Con to name those characters, to give them backstories in Galarian, and to give them motivations for this specific adventure. And the module explains why these characters are in High Delve in this town, and then give them Pathfinder stats and run them through this adventure.
So what makes this adventure, why did you think that this was the adventure to write for Gen Con's 50th?
So I think that it was really about wanting to both, give folks who've been going to Gen Con somewhat of an incentive of, just showing them, hey, you've seen these characters for so many years, now you can actually see what their stats are in Pathfinder, you can play them in an adventure, and everything is packaged together very nicely. But it was also, part of the mission was also to bring in new role players. And so the module is meant to be very beginner friendly. It's meant to be very easy to run as a GM if you've always wanted to GM, or if you've played a little bit and you want to make the jump from player to GM. And it's also very very kid friendly, very family friendly. And so it's designed so that, if you have been playing these games for a long time, or you've been out of it for a little bit, or you want your family members, your kids, or younger siblings, or what have you, to be able to play with you, then you can run this adventure for them, or you can find somebody to run the adventure for you at the show or something like that, and really just create a new add to the new generation of people who are playing role-playing games, and give them something that is going to be as appealing to a wide segment of the audience as possible.
Now, you've announced that it's going to be available at the Paizo booth during Gen Con and the Games and Gears booth during Gen Con. For people that won't be able to make it to Gen Con, how would they be able to pick up a copy? So
the module will also be available on Paizo.com after Gen Con. You can, in addition to the actual module, we'll also be selling the minis of the iconic characters. Yeah, so Games and Gears is the company that produces the minis for the Gen Con iconics. And so it will all sort of be packaged together, and that flip mat that I had mentioned, Cavernous Lair, earlier, will also be part of the package, and that is the map that's exclusively used in the adventure. There's one part that doesn't use that flip mat, but that's more of a role-playing encounter. All the actual battles take place on pieces of that flip mat, and so they were sort of designed to go together. So you'll be able to buy all of that stuff in a package at Gen Con, or after Gen Con, the Paizo website will have all that stuff available as well.
Now, this isn't quite as cut and dry because this is a sponsored product or a partnership product, but Ask a Pathfinder wants to know if this is going to be available as a PDF.
Yeah, it'll be available as a PDF, or you can buy the physical copy as well.
Alex, you're about to jump in?
No, I was just going to comment that it sounds like a really great homage to the Mecca of nerddom.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just sort of a celebration of, everybody has gotten together to play these types of games, for years on end, and the Iconics are characters that you recognize, and Pathfinder is a very iconic brand, a very, fan-friendly brand, and so if those things are of interest to you, then something about this product should be interesting and appealing as well.
Now, tangentially related, but since you're talking about the caverns, I'm very glad that you made the caverns at least large, because nothing kills my suspension of disbelief than the dragon's lair with 5-foot wide corridors.
Yeah, that was a big assumption. So there were a lot of things that were prescribed that needed to happen in that module for various reasons, requests that Gen Con had for different types of monsters and events that happened during the module. And so when I heard that I needed to design a flip mat to go with it, it's like, okay, well, I know it needs to be a cave because that was part of some of the things that Gen Con had requested, and I know that there are certain monsters that need to be involved. We're going to make a map where these monsters would realistically be, and not someplace that they'd be squeezing everywhere and, just have the pasties converge on them and kill them easily. So, I'm definitely just like you in getting very annoyed when the maps are not the right size for the creatures.
You look at some of the monsters, like, how did you get here?
Yeah, totally. I don't like to not have an answer for players when they ask stuff like that.
All right. So it sounds like you've got a lot of product. I noticed there was something about, you guys were promoting about a new elevation tool that you're also releasing at the convention.
Yes. So that is. I'm trying to think of the name of the product. Yeah. So those are those little plastic accessories that are for when creatures are flying or hovering or whatever it is that they're not on the ground. That is a product that has been very popular because it's so useful when you've got the wizard flying or you've got somebody levitating or something like that. Actually representing that on the map so everybody remembers exactly where they are is just so useful, and they've been on back order for so long that now that we've finally been able to get a new supply, they've just been selling like crazy, and I believe we've actually been selling them currently. We'll have them at Gen Con, but that's the thing that people always ask us about, and I always feel bad when we don't have them, but this year we will.
Yeah, I just thought that I just wanted to call that out because it has a bit of new importance now that Jetpack appears in the equipment section.
Yep, totally.
All right, so that goes over some of the product. That goes over some of the expected product. What sort of events or promotion or cool things that aren't related to just shopping at the Paizo booth are you guys putting on at the show?
Sure. So we have got a ton of Pathfinder Society, as we always do. We are very excited to kick off the Starfinder Society as well. So for Pathfinder, we'll start with that. We've got Season 9 launching. We've got a big interactive special, as always, that our organized play folks have worked really hard to put together. We've got several new scenarios that are kicking off Season 9 launching at Gen Con as well. And then, of course, we've got our Season 1 of Starfinder Society that's launching. And we've got the Starfinder Society special, which is a little bit different from what our Pathfinder specials have been. Instead of a big interactive, this is more of an introduction to what Starfinder Society is and what the game is and how to play the game. So the Starfinder special is a is a scenario with pre-generated characters, and they are 4th level pre-generated characters, versions of the iconics from the core rulebook, and they're playing through a scenario that is essentially story-wise explaining, what is going on with the Starfinder Society and how are they sort of like getting into, how are they presented and kicked off into the campaign setting. So that will be available for purchase after the show, and you can run it whenever. It's not convention only, the way the Pathfinder special usually is. So it's a great way to introduce people to Starfinder and to Starfinder Society in general. And we've also got a few Starfinder Society scenarios that are kicking off as well. That will be normal organized play scenarios where you bring a character or you play a pre-gen and you go through the story. So most of our Starfinder stuff is sold out, I have to say. But I'm told by Thurston Hillman, who's our Starfinder Society developer, that you can go to HQ and use generic tickets to purchase any slots that might be open. There's no guarantee that there'll be any spots open, but if you really want to play Starfinder Society, they might be able to figure out a way to have an opening, or there might be an opening. Pathfinder Society has lots of openings. You can go up there and get into any of those games whenever you like. I believe the special probably still has some slots, although I hope I'm not wrong about that. It's been a little while since I checked. But yeah, so there's all kinds of great events for organized play that you can get into if you're a longtime player, or if you just want to see what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, Starfinder Society sold out. Gen Con has sold out. The hotel rooms have well sold out. This 50th, it looks like it's just going to be a crazy packed party.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting because, like you said, Gen Con has never sold out before. We know that it's been growing. It's been getting bigger every year. It is markedly bigger than the show that I went to 12 years ago, and that was, a couple of years after it moved from Milwaukee, and I thought that was overwhelming then, and it's just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, I just think that there is, something about board games and role-playing and the Gen Con experience that really speaks to folks, and people have started, making it their summer vacation and making it the thing that they go and do. And so it's really exciting to be involved in that and to see the 50th, especially as a professional game industry developer, designer, somebody who's involved, from the back end of the operations. It's just, it's going to be really incredible, and I really can't wait to see what the fan response is to all of our stuff, but just what the experience will be like in general.
Now we've got some questions from chat. Do you want to take a couple? Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Donato Classic says, "Hi Amanda, what kind of plans might you have in revamping or re-engineering various lines in which you now have your hands?"
Well, so that would not be a me decision. That would be a decision that would be made in conjunction with Eric Mona, who would likely be the person to make the final call on the editorial side, but it would need to go all the way up to the executive. So I couldn't just walk into Paizo, the day after Gen Con and say, we're blowing up the campaign setting line, or, we're making player companions and the rules books all into one publication. I could do it, but it wouldn't be pretty. I'd get laughed at a lot, probably get called a few names. Nobody wants to see that. So, there are some things, that we've kicked around, but really nothing major that, we're ready to announce or anything. As of right now, we're still very focused on creating the same great player companion content that everybody's used to, creating the same campaign setting type of content, and, expanding the world in that way, and focusing on some of our hardcovers, whether they're campaign setting or design or anything like that. We're really focused on sort of doing that going forward.
Right. Ask Pathfinder asks, I'm paraphrasing on this one. Starfinder has rules for converting the core races from Pathfinder. When will it have support for converting some of the non-core races, such as Aasimar, Tieflings, etc.?
Sure. So we will we'll be giving some advice. There's some advice in the core rulebook, in the back of the core rulebook, right? Which I think maybe this person has already seen, but I'm not sure. So there's a little bit of just discussion of, how to do that. But I think in the near future, in the fairly near future, there will be a lot more information released. I don't want to give away too much, but there will be something for folks who are wanting a little bit more in the way of legacy races from Pathfinder. So it is a thing that we know there's a lot of design room for. It's a thing that we all want to do personally as designers. So I just say stay tuned.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what do the card game fans have to look forward to?
I'm sorry?
The card game.
Card game fans. Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So for the card game, we have got the Magus class deck. Mm-hmm. So that is, of course, the Magus class from Pathfinder, but there's a lot of cool stuff for people who like to meld magic and martial stuff, just like with the Magus Pathfinder class. But yeah, so Celtio fans for the card game now will be able to play that deck.
And will the Pathfinder Adventure card game players also get to participate in the Pathfinder special this year like they did last year?
Oh, that I am not so sure about. I'm just going to say I'm not sure about that one.
I know that one.
Oh, you know that one, Alex? What's the answer?
I'm running the special this year, so the answer is yes, it does.
Okay. I didn't want to say yes without knowing for sure.
Okay, so that's good. I thought that was really neat because there's been a sort of an artificial division created because they seem to develop into two separate audiences. Here at No Direction, we expected there to be a lot of crossover audience, and there is, but it seems that two distinct audiences exist that are both very strong Pathfinder fandoms, the card game fans and the role-playing game fans, and it was kind of nice to see us all working together at once. That was one of the neatest things I took away from the last couple of years at Gen Con. So I'm definitely glad that you're keeping that tradition alive.
Yeah, and I really need to give a shout out to John Compton, who has been very involved in the organized play side of the card game as well. And, just dealing with overall story elements and, he's written some, I have as well, but John has really just done a phenomenal job pulling in a lot of different plot threads and seeds and infusing them into the card game and really making the card game stand out, and the organized play seasons of the card game stand out as stuff that is just really compelling stuff to play. Even if you are a longtime Pathfinder RPG fan, there are pieces of story that you will be able to pull out by playing the card game organized play and vice versa. So I really feel like the synergy between the card game and the organized play role-playing game has been just incredible and is only going to get better. And some of the stuff that we've already got in the can for down the line is, I think, just really going to blow people away. So John has done an amazing job. I have to say thank you to John Compton, and I'm very impressed.
Wow, you've written card game scenarios too? Your fingerprints really are on everything.
Yes, and that was on a freelance basis. Of course, your writing is all freelance for us, but I contributed quite a bit to Season of the Rune Lords, and did the last couple of adventures for that, and have sort of had my fingers in the plotting and will for the writing for some of the stuff in the future as well.
Now, besides what we've talked about, is there anything that you're looking forward to yourself about the convention this year?
I think I'm just really looking forward to seeing what the Starfinder fan base looks like and what the hype for that game translates into the fans who are coming into our booth and talking to us. I've been at a few conventions now where Starfinder has been just a huge hyped product and something people are very excited about. But I sort of feel like Gen Con is just going to be just the sweet spot and, just the absolute pinnacle of what that's going to be and what that's going to look like. So, Paizo Con, of course, is the big one. We were showcasing all of the finished stuff that we had done, and we had a Kinko's printout of the rules that were relevant for running demos out there. I think you were both at PaizoCon, so you probably saw that. and then of course the banquet and talking about all the cool stuff for Starfinder and showing off the arts. And then after that, I went to UK Games Expo where folks were really excited because Paizo hadn't been to that show before. And there was what was really interesting to me about UK Games Expo is that there was a whole group of fans and role players who didn't really play fantasy RPGs, or if they did, they were very, very new to it, and they played other versions of the game that were not Pathfinder. But they were coming to us at our booth and being really excited about Starfinder, and they were playing the iconics and role-playing them and getting really into it, and just revealing aspects of the game and aspects of the characters that I hadn't even really thought about. So it was just so fascinating to see people get into it and, be so excited about a lot of things that I hadn't even really hit on as big points myself yet. So Gen Con I see as being kind of just the pinnacle of what that's going to end up being, and not only the volume of folks, but just seeing what people think about the core rulebook, hearing feedback, answering people's questions, just seeing what it is that everybody is reacting to immediately, I think will be just very telling for the future of the game in general. So I hope that it's all good, but, we'll see.
Sweet. Now, and if somebody wanted to meet up with you, get your autograph, etc., at the convention, where should they be looking?
Sure. I will be at the main Paizo booth for most of the convention. I have a lot of panels on Friday, so I'll be kind of in and out on Friday. But Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, pretty much the whole time, with the exception of 1 or 2 hours here or there where I might have a panel or a break or something, I'll be at the booth. So I would love to talk to folks. The whole, Starfinder design team has a similar schedule to me, and when most of us are gone, that might be a good indication that there are Starfinder panels going on, so maybe come back in an hour or so, because, we're sort of all on those panels. But yeah, I mean, definitely want to talk to fans, definitely want to hear what they have to say, and, answer whatever questions I can about the game. And, I'm just happy if they're interested.
Excellent. All right. Before this is a last chance warning for the chat to get any questions that they have before we transition over to the news and banter segment. All right, Alex, got anything to chime in here on, or anything you're excited for at the con that you can talk about?
I'm really excited because this year I'm planning on doing a lot more floating around than I did last year. Last year was my Tier 1 GMing experience, and being a Tier 1 GM is fun, but it doesn't afford you much mobility, and with Starfinder releasing, I felt that having more mobility was important for me. What about you, Param? Are you living in the hall where they do the seminars?
The
seminars.
front row of the seminar room?
Yes.
I mean, we're just going to go ahead and move in a tent, and just to make sure that gets taken care of. But yeah, I'm going to, if the fans are looking for me, you'll most likely find me in one of the seminar halls. Now, we do have some volunteers that will be giving me some well-needed breaks, and will make some of the coverage possible, because there's some simultaneous coverage that's going to need to happen. It's not quite as insane as the PaizoCon schedule that we had to pull off this year, but yeah, so there are going to be some volunteers, so I won't always be there, especially on Thursday, because I'll be at the Paizo booth a lot of Thursday, just getting the usual impressions and video footage and stuff filmed. But hey, yeah, that's where you'll find me. And there doesn't seem to be any more questions from chat, so Amanda, anything you want to shout out to before we wrap up this segment?
Yeah, so I think that I would be remiss if I didn't give all the credit in the world to Thurston Hillman as well as John for all of Thurston's work on Starfinder Society. It was a brutal grind getting all of that stuff done and getting everything ready. Just a huge volume of content that we have launching at Gen Con for Starfinder Society is a huge boon to Thurston. So I just wanted folks to know that Thirsty is a tireless proponent of all things Pathfinder and Starfinder Society. If you enjoy Starfinder Society, if you like playing the special with the pregens, all of the fun that you have on there is just a huge credit to Thurston, as well as all the other folks involved in OP over there as well. But my fellow designers on the design team for Starfinder, all of them were just wonderful to work with, and it's just going to be great to sort of go to Gen Con and experience that with them, knowing that we were all sort of in this crazy boat that was on fire and broken into a million pieces and sinking as we were getting closer to the deadline. It's going to be really great to experience sort of the fruits of all of our labor. So Owen Casey Stevens, Rob McCreary, Jason Keeley, and James Sutter, all of those folks, just deserve a huge amount of credit for all of that. And all of our other folks at Paizo who just do a great job day in and day out. I owe a ton of gratitude to them, and they really deserve to have a great convention as well. We've got just, if I could mention very quickly, we've got a couple of folks who are either Paizo employees or Paizo affiliates who are industry insiders this year at Gen Con. So Crystal Frazier, who is an amazing developer on the Adventure Path line, and does a lot of bits and pieces of lots of different types of products herself, is an industry insider this year and has amazing things to say. So anybody who wants to check out that program should go listen to Crystal. She is a font of information. Amber Scott, who is a longtime freelancer for Pathfinder, is also an industry insider, and Amber is an amazing writer. She's incredibly witty and entertaining and charming. You should go check out Amber's stuff for her industry insider panels. But just anybody who's in that program will be great to listen to. So industry insider, highly recommended.
Excellent. Thank you very much. When we come right back, it will be news and banter. And we're back, except for I'm not back yet. The video will fix itself in a few moments, gang.
I've usurped control of the channel after all.
There we go. Just a little bit messed up. I can fix it now. Okay.
No.
I have to fix it. I have to. It's what I do. I'm not much of a technomancer if I can't get a level 1 cantrip or level 0 cantrip to make this darn scene start
Well,
working.
of course not. You're a wizard, Param. You haven't retrained yet.
I just don't have the gold to retrain in the technomancer.
That's true. It's really expensive. Did I ever tell you that I had to retrain in Rain of Winter to get out of Cavalier levels?
Oh, no, I didn't. So what? I guess Cavalier's kind of worthless in Rain of Winter.
No, I was trying to go Battle Herald originally, and it just it was too long to wait for a payoff, especially as we started getting into Book 2 and further into Book 1. So I ended up just training out of Cavalier, and I went straight Bard and never looked back.
Okay, yeah, I guess Pure Bard is a fun way to do that, and would really help in that adventure path, especially when you have to make some crazy diplomacy rolls.
So I'm really good at that. I'm really good at the crazy diplomacy rolls. The problem with my group is that I am primary arcane spellcaster, and the Bard spell list is not good at being primary arcane spellcaster.
Ooh. Yeah, they're sort of more of the support caster. They make better primary healer than they do primary arcane spellcaster.
Yeah, and they're even not great at healing. It's like I have literally every single spell on the sorcerer wizard spell list that you would consider a necessary for adventure that I can get, and we're still behind. Like, our party has no way to fly. That's been really tough to deal with.
That is really hurting us right now on our group as we're getting into Book 4. Like, they really want to fly right now, especially our barbarian. So we'll have to see about how that can accomplish. But they're getting really close to being able to just control the chicken hut, so that might be a partial solution.
So without spoiling anything, because I don't like. I know you don't like spoilers, and I'm not a fan. So you know the last dungeon in book 4.
No.
You haven't read it yet?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's the really cool one that's shaped like a snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the special snowflake.
Oh.
But anyway, in the lead up to that adventure, our GM decided that she didn't like the fights going up to it, because it's like you fight in a field up to the castle, and she wanted us to be super cool and sneaking in through a back door. So she went and she rewrote all of those encounters to be us sneaking in through the back door. And one of the things she gave us for doing it is she gave us a pair of boots of flying,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of boots, they were Uggs of flying.
That's
So
terrible.
we're currently having our Aldori Sword Lord wield the Uggs of flying into battle.
Oh. But as fun as that is, and I'm worried we'll get way too into spoilers, especially if some of my players might be listening right now. No listening to
I'm sure they are.
So we're not going to talk about that much.
They were like Alex and Param. Alex can't keep his mouth shut. Oh, the spoilers from Alex. While Param goes, no.
All right. We're going to talk about the news and banter. We're going to lead off with the news. There's been a little bit of a news come out. And then for banter, we're going to participate in wild speculation in our Gen Con and the future of Paizo predictions, where we bat way less than 1,000. We've only been right a few times. And there's some warning. I know that you're not going to be able to participate in some of this discussion.
Yeah,
Alex.
I mean, so like, I don't know much that's coming out past Ultimate Wilderness, which has already been announced, so I'm clear on that. Okay. But I do know one thing, and I can't talk about it. So
right,
yeah.
So we would not talk about it, and not even hint about it. But I know nothing, or at least I know
you
nothing.
Don't. And I mean, hey, just because I know one thing doesn't mean I can't rampantly speculate. It's just I can't rampantly speculate about the thing that I know is happening.
Right. The fun is the Gen Con prediction. That's where we'll be going.
Yeah.
But let's
they're going to announce.
Right. Let's go into the news. Okay. First news we've kind of already touched on is Starfinder's out in the wild. PDFs have been hitting the subs hands.
It is.
Some early copies have been sold at stores. Some copies have made it all the way through shipping, and people are, especially the collector's edition. That one evidently shipped a little bit earlier. So half the time we see somebody holding a Starfinder that they got early, it's a collector's edition, which, by the way, has completely sold out. Like, this is the first time a collector's edition of a Paizo book has sold out.
Yeah, so like, I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy, guys. I'm not much of a collector for things. I mean, like, I did trading cards and stuff when I was young, but after that, it just, nah. But I was legitimately surprised that they sold out of something that's a collector's edition, because at least to me, like, that, like, a collector's edition has no more inherent value to me personally than, like, a normal rule book. So I was like, whoa, you guys wanted this book so much that you bought it all out? I mean, good on you, Paizo, for taking advantage of all of the hype that you worked so hard to generate.
Yeah, and I do like to do a lot of the collecting. I prefer the collector's editions when I have a choice of two versions. This case, I wanted extra core rulebooks because you always need extra core rulebooks. And so I'm getting a collector's edition and a normal edition, and there's probably going to be a Kinko's edition of my PDF that'll exist to help, especially getting started with a new system. We're going to need copies distributed, and I cannot wait until there's a softcover edition. I'm hoping that there will be.
So this is my personal hope. I have no idea whether or not this will happen. I'm hoping that the Starfinder core rulebook will come out, and it'll come out in a couple of weeks. It'll be super popular. Everyone's going to love it. They're going to pick it up, and feedback is going to start generating. And I'm hoping that we're going to see some FAQs or erratas come out relatively quickly, because when 5th edition came out, they were pretty good about doing a once-a-month, like, update. Update dump. We'll call it an update dump. And just dump out all the updates. And then hopefully, and in the course of, like, maybe 6 months, ideally, like, there will be enough feedback that we can have a one of the soft covers. Because let me tell you, I never brought my core rulebook anywhere until I made it a soft cover. Like, to me, like the soft cover is the ultimate in portability.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can somehow get one of those pocket editions, I will be floored, and like that is what I need for my life right now.
Well, spoiler alert, that's probably how I'm going to have the Kinko's edition printed, is booklet size. I mean, have you seen these? I think I posted them on Facebook. I've been, and this is not a new concept, but I've been printing off all my print-offs in these little booklet sizes, which is, a little bit smaller than the pocket editions. It's super easy to just click that setting on Adobe and get it printed out. And you have to have good eyes to read it. Not terrible. I mean, it's about reading, if you're able to read most thick college textbooks, it's about similar. And super portable. So definitely gonna, when I do get my PDF printed, I'm gonna have it printed at this tiny size. I've also been throwing away my adventures because why hang on to them? But I haven't brought myself to throw away my little mini adventures. I just can't.
Yeah. So I'm weird when it comes to books. Like, I don't like reading PDFs for like core rulebooks and player companions and campaign setting guides, and any of that. I hate reading them for that. But when it comes to the adventures and the Pathfinder Society scenarios, like I pretty much read them exclusively on my laptop. Like, I do all my prep work on my laptop. I open up the PDFs. I highlight things that are important. I take snapshots of stat blocks and put them all in a folder, so all that information is in one place. I am really good at organization, and I'm pretty good at memory, but I'm not good at photographic memory. So literally using photos for me to win and to do it quickly is what's helpful to me. Just because, especially with my master's course schedule now, I don't have the time to do a lot of like crazy memorization prep, So I like having all of that done and putting all my notes in, and like I'm pretty much at the point now where I can read a scenario once and run it as long as I have my notes.
Yeah, I mean, prepping is an art. It's been a discussion on the podcast. It's been a discussion on our Facebook page. We even have some advice prepping on the articles, which I will talk about when we get into the shout-outs, when we shout out to the articles. So that's good. All right, some other news that has come out. We're going to run through this really quick. Starfinder Society has introduced a tag system for their adventures. That's going to be right on the cover, literally. Some of the tags that have been announced are exclusive, which means it's con exclusive or some sort of exclusive. Faction, that means it has a special faction tie-in and it will mention what faction. Quest, if it's a quest series. Well, the quests are the groups of one-off adventures, which are usually one non-combat challenge, one combat challenge that can be run in short succession, and then there's usually a bonus if you run through the entire quests. We've had some fun running quest sessions in Pathfinder Society where we just do like all 4 quests at once.
Yeah, those are fun sometimes. I really liked it for House of Harmonious Wisdom.
That's the one. Replayable, which is, I'm hoping that one gets spread a lot. You know my bias on that one. And Starship, which means this will involve Starship combat. I'm kind of surprised that's a tag, but then again, I can see its function. I just assumed everything would be Starship, but I guess, not everything can be Starships.
So rampant speculation, I'm willing to bet that it's probably time consuming. And if you have a good Starship fight wouldn't be like, here's one battle and then we move on to the real adventure. That would feel really lame. It might be cooler if you have entire scenarios that are Starship objectives, kind of like the Assault on the Wounds Society scenario that's mostly mass combat. You could have a scenario that's like, if the Starship tag meant like, hey, if you go into this, expect 99% of what you do here is this. It might be cool.
Yeah, and this has already started trickling back into Pathfinder Society. The exclusive tag is being put onto adventures that are exclusive. And I kind of hope that some version of this trickles all the way back to Pathfinder Society to make it much easier to just sort of see at a glance what you're getting into with each.
Totally.
Each one.
Even if they just go and they're like, okay, well, like imagine if they had. I don't think they have tier tags, do they? I know before Liz left, she made a tagging system that tagged things by nation.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a tier tag, do we? Do they?
I don't know. I just sort of flip through the pages. I'm terrible at this organization thing, whereas Alex is great at it.
I mean, except this week where like my finals were like on Sunday, and I kind of passed out and didn't do an article this week. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to make up for it with Starfinder stuff after the book comes out.
Yeah, that is a good time to mention about our coverage during Gen Con. Expect the article coverage during the week of Gen Con and leading up to it to be a little bit erratic and spotty, because a lot of us are traveling, a lot of us are prepping, a lot of us are like going to be deeply busy making sure that our Gen Con coverage goes off without a hitch, as well as participating in a lot of the Gen Con events so that we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that 5 of the 7 of us are going in some capacity. Isn't it just Lauren and Anthony who aren't able to make it this year?
Yeah. I feel bad that I would love to get the entire gang together, if for no other reason than to get a great cover shot for the website.
That would be pretty great.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on, we've got some more news. This one is some inside baseball. Jason Bowman has showed off his brand new business cards, which sports a brand new title: Director of Game Design. Now, we do know a few things. He is still in charge of Pathfinder design. That will not change. Or officially, that has not changed. And then he said that his new title reflects the evolving role in other games and opportunities. And that is the extent of the teasing we have got from him. So, time to rampantly speculate.
So, I know that when we were talking about it as a No Direction team, the idea of a new role-playing game coming up popped up. I don't think there's going to be a new role-playing game. Not this close to Starfinder. Spoiler, I was in the playtest for Starfinder, and like the amount of work that goes into making an RPG happen, like even when you're just like watching the playtest documents come up, it's staggering. Like there's no way they would do these two back to back. There's no way. You got to give them at least like 5 more years, folks.
I think I was teasing that the RPG would be Westfinder, because of course Cowboys is the next genre you obviously cover after you get done covering fantasy and sci-fi.
No, because it would be Westfinder. You have to go find the missing editor-in-chief and stow him back upon his throne of darkness and blood at the Paizo HQ.
I think Amanda would hop back on this chat and beat us for that suggestion. We don't want her to lose her brand new position or Adam to lose his.
Maybe West would be like a veiled master because the Runes of Islandi is coming out. He'd just sit in the background and manipulate things. He'd be the professional, the manipulator in chief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if West was going to be involved in their brand new Asterisk Finder, I was going to say Starfinder. If they're going to do Asterisk Finder, it would definitely be Tentacle Finder, Cthulhu-y inspired.
Yeah. Adam Daigle would like to remind us that he's actually a veiled master in disguise, so maybe not. Maybe what is it, the Omnibus? Is that what they're called? I was reading I don't know if it's necessarily yours, but I was reading the article that's really awesome in the thing that you just put out that totally came with my Elemental Masters book that I already showed off. Oh, forget it. I don't feel like doing little side things. I got this too. So.
Ooh, Lost Outpost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, Amanda was not kidding when she said this one is gorgeous. Like visually, this is my favorite AP book.
Visually,
it was visually. Like,
so what do you mean by
will I get
visually?
in trouble for sure?
No. You can. It's a product you received legitimately due
that's
to,
fair.
And it's out in the wild, so you can show off a little bit.
All right, so
not too much.
The page. I picked a random page here.
Okay.
The page borders are all like, they are all designed so they look like they've been sketched. Like,
hold it up and hold it still, or else it's going to get blurry.
Look at that. Like, it's gorgeous.
It's got like this like jungle theme to it too. Like that macaw up in the corner. That's really sweet looking.
And then like, I'm gonna try to cover this NPC that has a name. You have this gorgeous like sidebar too. Like it also looks like it's like all the text in this looks like somebody hand wrote it.
It looks like they lashed it to the sidebar to the side of the page with some rope too.
Yeah.
Good artwork on layout and design this time, team. Oh, I saw there was a map in the front.
Yeah, there's a map of the Aslanti ruins. It's just called the Ruins of Aslanti region. It looks like this. It's really pretty. I'm not going to hold this up for too much longer, but it only has letters. I don't think it'll spoil anything.
All right.
But yeah, it's
definitely
it's got
some stuff to look at.
I mean, like the thing that really impressed me about that book is that book is basically Jade Regent without a gazetteer.
Oh,
like there's no Dragon Empires style book for the Aslanti continent. Like nothing is like that has came out. The closest we got was Aquatic Adventures that talks a little bit about the ocean, but nothing about the region. So like reading through the book, it's really impressive how well done it is without a campaign setting guide to work on it. I think it looks really cool. I only started subscribing to the AP for Strange Aeons. I have a bunch before then, but I became a subscriber for Strange Aeons because I'm all about Lovecraft and I wanted to run it. And I was actually going to unsubscribe for Iron Fang Legion, but I forgot to, and I got the first book, and I was like, oh my god, this book is beautiful. I can never unsubscribe to this line ever again. So now I have Ruins of Aslanti coming in.
Yeah. Insidious tentacles.
Yeah, like
actually, literally in this case.
Good job, by the way, Paizo, for not only getting an adventure that I love, that's really fresh and exciting, Strange Aeons, but like also then following it up with like a 1-2 whammy punch to make me stay. So I was like, whoa! I came for the tentacles and I stayed for the hobgoblins.
And now are you going to stay for the return of the tentacles?
For the Aboleth tentacles, yes, yes, I am. And then after that is like political intrigue, my favorite kind of adventure. Like they announced War of the Crown, and that was the #1 thing I was excited for from hearing the PaizoCon coverage. I was blown away.
Their master plan is at work. Daigle chiming in here at chat saying working as planned. You insidious publishers.
I can't stop. I'm hooked. It's like, I mean, it's a good thing that like this is the reason why I can't afford like liquor money. So.
How dare you all keep producing a quality product on a regular schedule? Which we will talk about upcoming soon when we talk about Anthony's blog.
Well, I mean, but going back to like news and announcements, there's another really cool product that's coming out for the 4th time.
Oh, what's the 4th time it's coming out?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the Reaper Bones 4th Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah, I've got that slated for shout-outs, but I guess that's newsworthy. Reaper Bones is happening again because they're not crazy enough. We need even more plastic crack in our lives that we'll be lucky to paint. And actually, it looks really cool this year. They've got a lot of, like, soldier minis, a lot of knight minis, a lot of demons. They really leaned hard into the demons. The core 100 set, it comes with one of their more classic dragon sculpts that used to be only available in metal and cost $75 freaking dollars. Yeah, I love those, but man, they were always so expensive. So I have loved being able to get them in plastic at a much more reasonable rate. And the add-on. Oh, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, they even have that Starfinder set that's basically Starfinder set.
No, the Chronoscape set, that's not the Starfinder set, the Chronoscape set.
That's why I added the word basically.
Yeah. Which will be a very good use to anybody getting into Starfinder. It's a $50 add-on that they've just been flooding with additional minis as they keep hitting stretch goals. Because that's how it goes. They start off with like 40 or 20 or 30 minis in the basic sets, and by the time it's done, you've got a freaking barrel full for your pledge in.
Yeah.
And for $50 add-on is for the Chronoscape set, which is just all the kinds of really awesome looking sci-fi minis, which I'm sure we're going to have a lot of use for in the very near future. Yeah. But too bad you've got to wait for like a year and a half to get these.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really hoping that they have the foresight to throw a lot of bug minis in there, like space bugs with space guns, because I feel like finding good models for the Sheeran are going to be really tough.
Jacob Blackman is talking about shouting out Christopher West's. Okay. Don't worry, guys. We've got some shout outs. A lot of the things you guys are expecting that we have already planned to give some shout outs to. But Reaper Bones, that's sort of like industry wide, that becomes
Yeah,
newsworthy.
I
You
mean,
definitely want to
like
get in on that when you can.
they I'm sorry. They do like second party contracts for the company we always talk about. So they're kind of, I think they're news at least.
All right, now moving on to we actually never did any rampant speculation on what Jason's new title means.
Oh,
So getting back to that, I think is important. I think this. Okay, this is rampant random speculation, so everything I say is probably wrong. But I think by the little tease, this means they definitely are introducing something, some new game that is not Pathfinder or Starfinder. It might be a tangentially related thing like the card game. I know that there was that abandoned dice game that didn't come out, the dice builder thing that got on Kickstarter, and then they took it down when it wasn't up to what they hoped it would be. I was involved in the playtest on that, so I can't speak too much into that. But I mean, I guess I'm expecting some sort of something.
so Empirasaur has said something that sort of rings with what my thoughts are. He says, or he or she says, a new board game in the works. And my thought is, what if Jason Bowman is doing like a Pathfinder version of Dissension? Like Dungeons and Dragons did that. They had their board games with their Dritz series minis where you would go around the board and picking cards and getting loot and gear.
Right.
That to me seems like the most obvious place of tabletop gameplay that Paizo hasn't touched yet. They don't do much with board games. They're mostly role playing games. So maybe they're going to further expand into the tabletop genre. I don't know. I honestly don't know much about tabletop games. I have a few friends that are big fans, but I mean, to me, that seems like a logical growth, moving into those types of areas. Especially now, think of this: what if the tabletop game somehow interfaced with the miniatures that you get from the Pathfinder Battles lines, like the iconic heroes sets, and you could use those heroes pawns in your tabletop game in some capacity.
Now, see, this is what we speculated would happen since the very release of Pathfinder Battles, because they named it Pathfinder Battles, and it came from a company that makes miniature battle games, and we were super surprised that no battle rules happened.
And so here's another funny thing. I follow Jason Bowman on Twitter, and for the past couple, not even sessions, the past couple months of his home game, they've been doing this war game that takes place in the Inner Sea, where each of his players commands an army and goes around trying to beat enemy armies. What if, like, they're doing mass combat rules for Pathfinder as their own game?
Like Pathhammer?
Well, no, you call it Pathfinder Battles because you already have the name.
Right, but like a miniature scale mass combat Warhammer style beat 'em up.
I don't think it would be that big because everything I've seen in his Facebook group is just like single miniatures on a map, like kind of like moving them around like game pieces, almost like a Pathfinder Risk sort of thing, but with like game mechanics and like rolling stats to beat monsters. Like, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily what'll happen, but historically speaking, if you follow the designers on Twitter and watch the type of games that they're playing, you can usually make good guesses as to what's in the company's future. Like how right before Horror Adventures came out, they were all playing Murder on the Orient Express.
All right, so that would be cool. I would definitely like to see a Pathfinder Battles, or I guess that would be a Risk scale style game, or old Hex wargaming, which is actually what led into like. We talk about the origins of D&D, but their origins date back directly to these hex-based war games that you cut out little cardboard chits and put down on a map, and the rules were printed on Xerox things, like
right,
pirated at the local library.
And Lisa, Vic, and Eric have always been, like, every time we've interviewed them, all about maintaining the history of the tabletop games,
Mm-hmm.
and the tabletop origins and history. So maybe this is their way of, like, not only making a system that I'm sure that the Pathfinder designers would love to have, to be able to say, here's a scenario using these rules in this game. This is how you fight. Do it. But then at the same time, that would also be heralding back to, like, what inspired Gygax and his stuff. And a game like War of the Crown should probably have some mass combat rules that are a little bit more intricate and important to the plot.
Yeah, I did not. I'm very public as to say that we were eventually very dissatisfied with how mass combat worked in Wrath of the Righteous, mainly because our players were ready for it and they built for it, and then they were unkillable.
Yeah, yeah.
Their army could not lose against any other armies, and so it was so pointless that we just eventually stopped running the mass combats. We just assumed they won and moved on with the not mass combat parts of the game. And so I would like to see that updated and brought out and developed. That would be great. Now we could go completely out of left field here. Like, I would like to see a Pathfinder Descent, like you mentioned. That would be great, or something more intriguey. Maybe a worker placement game based on being a venture captain. Like, you have, like, the whole map of Galarian, and you're dispatching little Pathfinder adventures, and the other player is dispatching Aspis, and trying to, like, that would be a cool thing. Something like Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, man. Those are my current thoughts, because, like you said, the name head of games design sort of implies that it's not going to be a game that we've seen before, because it's obviously he can't be. I mean, so a title that said head of Pathfinder and Starfinder would kind of clash with Owen's recent title. You just talked about him last episode. Like, I'm with you that I think it's something new is coming. I don't think it's going to be a full-on. I mean, like, I feel like we're at the point now where making games that supplement your current game makes sense to a certain capacity, sort of like how we've seen success with the ACG supplementing PFS. And having these rules of being like, okay, this is a mass combat scenario, here are some hardcore mass combat rules, let's do this, makes a lot of sense. If that's the case, I hope they don't go full Warhammer, just because Warhammer is really expensive to play. I feel like that type of game is really tough to get off, and it tends to attract a very specialized, I don't know, I don't want to say elitist, but a Ligarian audience of people who are, like, willing to throw their resources all into getting these minis, whereas I think that, you know, modern games need to make sure that they're financially accessible to players, because that's how you grow your base.
I think that they're happy taking all the money.
You talking about Games Workshop or Paizo?
Paizo.
Or both?
I mean, both. I mean, they're profitable game companies. I mean, it's already absurdly expensive to keep up with a subscription to the Pathfinder Battles line, even as that product has slowed down these last couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to new news, and tying into miniatures, Ninja Division has unveiled the sculpts and pricing of their unpainted minis that they teased about during our interview and later confirmed. The Starfinder unpainted minis, they were announced. They're going to range from $9.99 to $12.99, and it includes basically the minis we saw in the painted sets. So if you want them unpainted, they're available.
So one thing that's confused me. The price tag was like $9.99 to $12.99.
Right.
Is that for all 6 of them,
No,
or is that just for the
individually?
One?
Individually.
Ooh,
the ship,
that's kind of expensive.
The spaceship is $12.99, and the characters are mostly $9.99. I think the the mechanic is a little bit more because it's 2 minis in one. You get the mechanic and the robot.
Yeah.
This is on the high side of mini pricing. This is, Unfortunately, not out of spec on what Ninja Division charges for their other minis. They are sort of a boutique shop that sells their minis at about this price. This is what you would pay for a Warhammer miniature or a War Machine miniature, but it's not what we've become used to thanks to the deep cuts and the bones lines of really super cheap Pathfinder minis.
Well, I mean, that's even more expensive than like. I mean, like, if I'm remembering right, it's more expensive than like a Reaper pewter mini too.
Oh yeah. A Reaper pewter mini runs around $5 to $9, and the nines are like pretty big.
Yeah.
None of these, except for maybe the lizard dude or the mechanic again, because it has a familiar, would breach the $10 range on a Reaper mini. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I'm willing to wait and see. I don't know if that product is for me personally. That's a little expensive for an unpainted mini. But I mean, if the quality is good, it might be justified. You know, it's tough because those images we saw, I had a hard time telling whether those were like actual pictures of the minis or whether those were 3D sculpts. So, yeah, I think I'll wait till Gen Con until I see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely going to want to get a hands-on. The sculpts look really good. The sculpts are super high quality, and I expect that from Ninja Division. The painted stuff we criticized on the last episode because the paint that they previewed didn't look the best, and the WizKids paints looked better for a much cheaper price point. So the unpainted minis might be the only way I go with these minis if I get them.
Well, I mean, especially because the pawns are just so gosh darn affordable.
Yeah, the pawns are just like crazy. I'm so glad the pawns exist. I don't think that Starfinder would be as successful as it could be if it wasn't for the pawns, because you're going to need so many minis that you just don't have. You do not have people with laser guns and laser swords and robots and giant mecha and, well, we've got plenty of things that can serve as aliens in the bestiary boxes. Paizo loves to make things with tentacles. But the tech and the starships and stuff, if the pawns didn't exist, running a Starfinder campaign or jumping headfirst in the Starfinder Society, as I'm going to have to be doing as a venture agent coming up, it's going to be hard. But thank God the pawns exist and they're so freaking cheap.
Listen, you just do the consumables, man. It's so much easier. You go out before Gen Con, you buy a couple of different bags of hard candy like Starburst, Hershey Kisses. Mm-hmm. You sit down at the table at Gen Con and you're like, hey, you see this Hershey Kiss? This is actually a Vesk. First person to kill the Vesk gets to eat his corpse. Mm-hmm. Done. Everybody is now trying to shoot your Vesk because he's chocolate.
Yeah, and we're going to talk... That came up in one of the blog posts that we're going to talk about in the shout-outs on the network. So, I know that's a tip we've heard again and again. But
was that James's?
Eating your foe. I think it was Andrew's. I kind of got them all mixed up in my head right now, but I'll get it right.
Do you know why Andrew has that tip on his blog? Because last year when he and his family came to Gen Con, I ran a scenario for them and showed them the glory of eating your foes. Oh. And let me tell you, Monica and Andrew were pretty cool about it. Their kids loved the idea that they got to kill the bad guys and eat candy for it.
All right, let me just double check on that before I absolutely emphatically state who posted that up, because I don't want to get it wrong. I'll get it right when I'm doing the rundown, but I always get everybody's mixed up in my head right before we dive in to an episode. Yeah, it was Andrew Marlowe. It's in part of his article, 5 easy convention prep tips for GM, which I like a lot of his prep style. Some of it's more work than I'm going to be able to do, but I like it. It's impressive.
Yeah, you know, Bard Wannabe just added in chat, it doesn't add to immersion when you use candy. It's like, you know what? Candy is really cheap, and your players walk away happy because you fed them. Okay. There's nothing wrong with using candy.
Make them all chocolate and chocolate and Starburst, and then get some silicone and start making some silicone molds of the miniatures, and then pour into the silicone molds the chocolate. So you have custom chocolate Ahsoka, custom chocolate androids, custom chocolate
I think what we need we need to have Chef Daigle give us his amazing Pathfinder eating your foes recipe cookbook. I bet you could do it, Adam. I bet you could do it.
If you did it on those little any round candies, you could just print off little pictures from the PDFs, and then just like have those taped on, and that way you can just unwrap it, and then you have this trophy.
Yeah, and it'd be really funny.
Much more prep than using candy usually. Yes.
It's great. No, there's nothing wrong with how you prepare your candy. It's just it's how great the candy is when you give it to them. But yeah, let's continue to the next. Do we have any more topic, or is that the end of our banter segment?
That's the end of our news section. Now usually comes the pre-Gen Con rampant speculation on what they will announce for next Gen Con.
Come on,
now,
you and me, let's go. Rampant speculation.
Are you free to make rampant speculation for next Gen Con?
Yes, I have.
Your foreknowledge does not extend that far, right?
No.
Okay.
No, it does not.
Excellent. I do not want to rampantly speculate alone.
That's good, and trust me, I will let you know whether or not can't speculate about something. No, I won't let you know, because then you'll know that you've hit something. No, this isn't going to work. No, I just won't comment, and I'll ask the audience what they think about everything you say. That's not true. Well, whatever. I'll play along with all of your rampant theories. That's what I'll do.
All right,
you'll never know which one I know about.
Okay, let's start with the low-hanging fruit. The next Pathfinder, what's going to be the big Pathfinder hardcovers announced after Ultimate Wilderness comes out? Specifically, like the big Gen Con release. Because Starfinder took it this year, they have to do a Pathfinder big Gen Con release. They can't steal Gen Con from it twice. Unless Starfinder is so rampantly successful that Pathfinder doesn't matter anymore.
So are we talking about like all the books for next year, or just next year's Gen Con book?
Let's start with the big book, like the big hardcover.
So this year, we know that we're getting a class from Pathfinder. We're getting the Shifter. Mm-hmm. That's being bumped back to like what, October, November, I think, is the release date for Ultimate Wilderness. Right. Mm-hmm. So usually, but not always, and for the past couple of years, the big pattern has been we've either gotten some kind of an adventure book or some kind of ultimate book that has a class in it, because we've heard from the designers before that they feel every time they do an ultimate book, it needs to include a class. Mm-hmm. We've also heard that the designers personally feel that we're running low on low-hanging class options. I believe that it was I forget who it was who said it, but it was someone who worked on Ultimate Wilderness who said it on this show. So my theory is that we're either going to get an adventure book, something with like new rules elements to change your Pathfinder game in some cool way, or so like that's kind of my number one pick. I guess we could get an ultimate book, but like I think we're starting to get a point where we're starting to wonder like how are they going to switch things up on us. I don't think we're at Pathfinder version edition 2 yet. There's a couple of different reasons why I think that, but I think that we are probably going to see something that maybe alters the way that we have these. I don't know how to.
Come on, Alex! You're getting too general. You're supposed to make specific predictions of a specific book.
You want specific? Okay.
Right.
I think we're going to get a hardcover version of the technology guide that helps take Starfinder rules and put them in Pathfinder.
That might be a good call. I expect that might be a campaign setting book. Might suffice for that. But I think that's definitely going to exist. What I think we're going to get is also something that steals from Starfinder. It's going to steal the ship combat. And we're going to get nautical adventures.
Oh, that would be great.
It would be so awesome. Brilliant. We can get our pirate ships and just go out into the sea. I'll be great Corsairs.
You don't even have to just make it nautical adventures. You could take the vehicle rules from Pathfinder, and if the designers feel that whatever in Starfinder is cleaner, you could update all of them, and we could just have like a general like almost like a chariot vehicular adventures or ultimate vehicles or something, you know, because like I think that generally speaking, one of the places where the game lacks is a good way to quantify those sort of like fast moving, I'm on a vehicle or I'm on a horse and we're doing this, like even if you went so far as to put mounts in it and finally codify the mount rules. Because I have a player at my local PFS store who is 100% sure that he can be a Sohei monk and ride on somebody's shoulders, and now they're his mount and all of his powers work on them. So, like, a book that really focused on writing stuff, like maybe mounted adventures, or, you know, something like that might be really cool.
I do think that the game is in need of a book about mounting is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
I
what to
think
call that.
just
Mounting Adventures is not the title they're going to go with. Ultimate Mount also off the table. I would maybe they'll go and grab the low hanging fruit they abandoned when they did the Animal Archive and call it the Animal Companion.
So
why it wasn't called the
for
Animal Companion, I'll never know. It's still one of my favorite books.
The description for Ultimate Wilderness seems to imply that there are going to be a lot of Animal Companion and familiar rules in it on the Paizo site.
Great.
I don't think that's what we're going to get.
But I think
however,
sorry.
Our listeners in chat are all speculating a sequel to Pathfinder Unchained, and I want to shoot that down, and I'm going to use my own logic for why I don't think Unchained 2 will happen next Gen Con, but I think it could happen Gen Con 52. And the reason why I don't think we'll see a Pathfinder Unchained 2 before Gen Con 52 is because of Starfinder. If they're going to unchain Pathfinder, they're going to probably want to look at Starfinder to see what kind of lessons they can learn from their shiny new toy before deciding what they can import to their flagship product.
Right.
And if that's the case, the turnaround time between getting a good feel for how the audience reacts to Starfinder and then making an Unchained 2 is too short for it to come out next Gen Con. The reason being is that it'll probably take fans, I'm going to guess, 2 to 6 months in order to fully digest the Starfinder core rulebook. It takes time. We've seen it with even the smaller rulebooks that have come out in the past couple of years, where fans need a minimum of a couple months to fully take new classes and new player options and to mentally place them into the grand tapestry that is Pathfinder's options. So I imagine it will take longer for the fan base to absorb Starfinder, and if that's the case, I don't think we'll see any big sweeping changes to the Unchained rules happen until at least a year following Starfinder, like more than a year following Starfinder. I'm going to say Gen Con 52 is when it becomes a reasonable option. I don't know. Do you think that sounds logical?
I think it sounds logical, but then you're starting to get into my Pathfinder 2.0 predictions. Is I think that the next Unchained is going to be not a full-on 2.0, but a revised Pathfinder in the same vein that second edition got the revised second edition. Not like a full-on,
and you know what,
like much more compatible with Pathfinder to the point that you can probably just use the stats because they don't want to cut that arm off that tree.
And I think that is the truly difficult part about updating Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
If you update Pathfinder, then what does that do to the 100+ volumes of AP that will already be out there? The longer it takes, the more adventures and the more scenarios are going to be affected. Like, will Pathfinder Society be able to update to the new Pathfinder rules if they have 10+ seasons of scenarios already in existence?
Right.
And if you're going to fully take in the Starfinder's rules, do we know if Starfinder's math is similar enough to Pathfinder's that it will work?
Well, from what we've seen and what the early previews and leaks and my early arrived PDF tell me, no, the math does not equal compatible at all.
You've had an early arrived PDF?
Yeah, I got my PDF a little bit ago, and so.
Well, I mean, I know that you know that I've had my PDF for a little bit myself, so I understand.
Oh yeah, and yeah, and that's why you're not going to be able to do the Starfinder review episode. We only have one rule on notification. You're not allowed to review a book you worked on.
Oh man, But my part was so... Oh, man. My part was so small. I could still do it, but that's okay. You know what? Do you know, if I can't be on it, I'd like to make a request.
We will talk about that
You
in
need
chat.
to...
I don't want to do it on air live. I don't want to do anything like that on air
It's got to
live.
be James.
We don't want to make promises to the audience before we can nail it down. James is so hard to schedule.
We'll make it. I'll make it happen. You'll see. You'll all see.
Anyway, I'm looking forward. Yeah, we're going to do a Starfinder Uber review. You all knew that. It's not going to be the post-Gen Con episode because that's going to give us all of 2 days to have read and digested all of Starfinder. And I kind of want to get some play under my belt before that. So I want to get my Starfinder Society groups going up and playing through some of that. And then I'll have some actual hands-on experience of I've played it at Gen Con, I've run it at Starfinder, and here's the answer. Here's what we go with. Because the only other thing we would tap into is playtesters, but they're sworn to absolute secrecy, and then they're not unbiased enough that we can tap into them. Yep. But that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen with Starfinder coverage. For the review.
So we've talked about rampant speculation for the core rulebook line.
Right.
How about APs?
That's the other thing we have to do. I think that with the Book of the Damned being reprinted, next year we're going to get an AP like that's Lords of Hell or some. It's going to be an adventure path that takes place in the lower planes.
So, I think it's going to Abaddon. And I have a good reason why it's going to Abaddon. Mm-hmm. Because Hell's Rebels is all about Hell. Mm-hmm. And Path of the Righteous is all about the Abyss.
Right.
Both of those adventure paths involve those corresponding planes heavily. Mm-hmm. That's about as much as I can say about them, having read them. There has been very little about the Horsemen, and we know that they are fan favorites of the Paizo designers and developers.
Yeah, and I've wanted to ever since I read that volume. I've wanted to run a Daemon campaign.
What if the adventure path that we're going to get is all about the Ana Daemon? For those of you who don't know, the Ana Daemon, and I could be pronouncing it wrong, Adam, if I am, please correct me, since you're probably still in chat. The Ana Daemon is like the first and greatest of all daemons, even more so than the Four Horsemen. And it's something that the community has talked a lot about. So if they're going to tap into Book of the Damned, that seems like a logical choice to me. However, if we or you, whatever, are right, and the next book is heavy on nautical rules and mounted rules, and if we're right that there's a high chance that some sort of mass combat gameplay a la Jason Bowman is in the works, maybe we are going to see a full-on War of the Inner Sea. Maybe it's going to be someone's trying to take Absalom, because whoever holds Absalom is basically in charge of the Inner Sea, according to the Absalom book that Owen wrote years ago.
Well, there's no shortage of giant wars that can break out in Pathfinder. A lot of countries are really wanting to get at it.
It's true, but having an adventure that's set in Absalom completely... I think that there's something that Eric worked on forever ago called Lords of Absalom or Kings of Absalom or something like that, and you could take themes from that and have a giant war essentially where you have to defend Absalom from some sort of horrific invaders. Maybe it's finally where we're going to get our Nex AP, and we're going to learn what's in the Spire of Nex, whether or not the Worldscape comics are canon in Pathfinder or not, that kind of thing.
Now I'm going back to my pitch. And this is my adjusted pitch for it. The players have all done something. They've made a mistake. And they get to... And the campaign gets to be them starting off with them waking up in Abaddon. And then having that fun little crash that they describe in Book of the Damned, how they crash down in there. And we get that. And the campaign trait is, what did you do wrong that got you here? And that'll tie into the adventure path. So, like, they pick the traits, kind of like the traits you pick in Strange Aeons.
Wrath of the Righteous. Or even Wrath of the Righteous.
Yes. And basically, the Force Horsemen want to get this apocalypse thing going, and you're the only ones in a position to stop it.
That would be kind of cool. It could be extra cool if, like, one of the options is like you're a paladin who was taken to Abaddon because you died and your soul was ripped out of the River of Souls by a daemon.
Ooh, fun! There's all kinds of ways because they have to.
What if the tagline for the adventure is "You're already dead"?
I've been wanting to run that sort of campaign forever.
I mean, like, the stereotypical type of adventure for that is, like, either adventuring in the ethereal plane as ghosts or as undead in, like, Geb or whatever. But if you take that and you're all just souls trying to survive being hunted by daemons on Abaddon, that could be really cool.
Mm. Now, this sort of treads into Kingdom Death Monster territory for some of what the aesthetic would be like. But we do know that a lot of Paizo was fans of that game.
Yeah, but, like, imagine if you have, like, a corruption in the book where, like, if you do things that are evil, you risk gaining corruption points that turns you from an ordinary petitioner into an actual daemon because you're being corrupted as, like, you know, if you're a petitioner in a plane for too long, you eventually transform into a creature native to that plane. So, like, if you're not careful, you could succumb to the very forces that are trying to devour you.
See, yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun. And definitely...
Planar horror!
Yes.
Yes!
And they're so messed up. The demons are so messed up. I'm looking forward to when we do the Book of the Damned hardcover review because I loved those books the first time it was released, and I kind of want to see what it looks like collected and fleshed out.
I think the Book of the Damned series is probably the strongest, like, even individually, they're the strongest campaign setting guides that exist. Just because they ooze flavor from every paragraph. Like, everything they talk about, the way they're formatted. Like, I love, like, even Chronicle of the Righteous, I'm counting in that.
We can't discount Chronicle of the Righteous, the unofficial fourth book in the series, which was also amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the pages is just, like, all about how, like, celestial problems and all. It's so good. I love all four of those books. They're some of the best. So do we have any other rampant speculation?
Nothing fomented. Usually we always guess what the AP is going to be and what the hardcovers are going to be. But if you've got any other rampant speculation to throw down here, I would love to hear it.
I feel like people have been asking for a sequel to either to NPC Codex for a while, and I'd be really surprised if we didn't get later.
Well, we do know we're getting a codex because that's just the pattern. We get a bestiary one year and a codex the other year, whether it's monster.
They broke that pattern this year because we got bestiary 5 the year before, and we got 6 this year.
Yeah,
so
but
really,
we got
with
the villain codex in between.
I guess you're right. Yeah, we did get the villain codex in between. Interesting. So, yeah, I would like an NPC codex, too, if only because I would really like to see a lot of the new classes given stat blocks, stats, and features. I mean, like, so as someone who does a lot of PFS, when the NPC codex gets referenced, it's usually the same, like, 5 or 6 stat blocks, and I think that PFS especially would benefit a lot. Big pool of different classes to pull from.
Yeah.
Especially if they embraced the ideology of keeping the campaign setting and the rules setting a little bit closer and had all of those new NPCs be characters with strong ties to Galarian. Like, even if they're saying, oh, this is the stats for this and this character, he falls under this class. Like, this is an actual character that we talked about before. Here's his official stat block. You could even go so far as to, like, pull NPCs from the backs of APs if you wanted to, and use that in order to. Now that they reprint monsters so that they can save on the amount of money they throw at a project. sort of like the same idea where you can pull these stat blocks from these famous characters from other NPCs and print them publicly and be like, okay, well, here's a little bit about this character. It's a perfectly good stat block. Why don't you use it?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what I did with the NPC database. We don't talk about the NPC database as much as like I talk about Parent Spellbook. But that's a thing I did that pulled from a database of exactly that.
Hmm. Right, but the advantage is that when you do something in a core rulebook line, it becomes much easier to cite for something like PFS or something like an adventure path. It would benefit player GMs short term because you would be able to just turn a page and find what they want. Long term, for people who play APs and PFS, it means that it'll be easier for them to include stat blocks without having those really cool stat blocks take up lots of room. So much, in fact, that if they had more high-level NPC stat blocks, it might be easier to do. I mean, this isn't confirmed or anything, but theoretically, it might be easier for them to do higher-level adventures without dedicating so much word space to a stat block that inherently needs a page and a half.
I agree and support this effort. Yes. NPC Codex.
Yes!
Daigle also points out that the Monster Codex came out. Was that after 5
Oh,
and
that's
before
true.
6? It must have been.
I don't know. I feel like I've had my Bestiary 5 forever, and I love it so much. The Greys made sure I can't remember a time before it.
I love Bestiary 6 so much. That's such a fantastically put together Bestiary.
Yeah, it's fun.
Alright, that's going to wrap it up for Rampant Speculation. When we come back, it will be for our wrap-ups and our shout-outs. And we're back. In the wrap-ups and shout-outs, we basically shout out to all the cool stuff we want to shout out, whether it's related to Pathfinder, usually, or just something really cool we want to get into. And this time, it seems to be Kickstarter season for our shout-outs because there's a bunch of really cool Kickstarters that we want to give some love to. But before I get into that, Alex, do you have anything you want to scream out to?
I do. Is it bad to be self-promoting?
We always self-promote in the wrap-up and shout-outs. It's exactly what
that's
it is.
fair. So, I teamed up with Owen Casey Stevens for a third-party project that is ridiculously huge in proportion. He and myself and my friend who lives nearby, Matthew Morris, put together this crazy, monstrously huge third-party compatible support book for Starfinder called The Starfarer's Companion.
Ooh,
and
yes, we shouted out to this last week, or last episode. And
did you?
Really fun.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
Yeah,
keep going. You can talk more about it than I was able to.
Yeah, so we're taking 6 classes from Pathfinder that we didn't think had a clear analog in Starfinder, and we're updating them to Starfinder mechanics. I personally took 2/3 of the races from the Advanced Race Guide and updated the mechanics to Pathfinder. So if you're somebody who wants to play a Kobold, a Asmar, a Tiefling, a Kitsune, a Venarin, I wrote stats for it in Starfinder. And we have cool little pieces of art that go with them. Matt went and wrote new computers and starships. One of the starships we have is a massive asteroid-sized ship that's designed to fly around. Yeah, it flies around through the wreckage of a destroyed planet. Its AI is actually a commie that uses the ship as its ward, and the commie drives the ship around, and the people on it go out and they grab refuse from destroyed worlds. Like if you were playing in the Pack Worlds, it might be Diaspora. In a campaign setting we're trying to start, it's a world that would a planet supernova, and so they take all the pieces and they put it in this asteroid and they the destroyed planet. We wrote tons of new feats. We wrote Matt wrote 200 spells. There's something like I want to say he said it was 20,000 spells in the book.
Good God!
Or 20,000, not spells, 20,000 words of spells.
Okay, good, because that'd be more than the entirety of Pathfinder, and I would know.
Yeah. Yeah. We have Jacob Blackman doing doing the art for a lot of it. It looks fantastic. I'm impressed with his work. I just don't even know like where to start. I did a bard that one of the things they get is they can pick instead of getting versatile performances, they pick a muse at first level, which represents the type of performance they're good at. And so like you have all your traditionals like acting and oration and singing, but I wanted to make sure there was something that felt uniquely Starfinder in it. So one of the choices you can pick for your performance is electronic. And you have like a synthesizer and you sync music on your synthesizer.
You get your freaking DJ on.
Yeah, we also have 2 brand new races that I wrote for the campaign setting that we're alluding to. One of them is a race that genetically splices a material that they find desirable from other races and adds it to themselves. And the other race is like sentient robots, like R2-D2 kind of stuff.
Now, I'm going to hate to cut you short on the shout-out.
Yeah, no,
looks like our
that's
connection
fine.
is dying. We're having a lot of connection issues, so I'm going to have to run through the rest of these shout-outs super, super quickly, and I apologize to the people we're shouting out to. I just want to get this out there before we die. Okay, we already talked about the Bones Kickstarter. Go listen to that. Bones is great. We also wanted to shout out to the Distance World Sci-Fi poster maps by Christopher West. They look amazing! Christopher's always done some great work, and we're going to need a lot of maps. But for starships and spaceships and stations and alien planets and stuff, and he is all over that. And the last
Param
thing,
just wants more maps.
Yeah, I just want all the maps. I want all the maps. The last thing we wanted to shout out to is to City of Seven Seraphs, which is a planar campaign capstone. So hey, you want your high level stuff? Go check this out. The art is beautiful. I believe it's being put together by Kristen N. Sowards, who is putting this product together, and there's just not enough cool things at that sort of scope. So hey, go check that out. Really wish I could throw.
He's also really cool people.
But our connection looks like it's about to take itself out. Also, if you did not know about the awesome blog content at No Direction. Yes, we've got some of the best Pathfinder-related podcasting out there with Private Sanctuary and No Direction, but we also have some of the best writers in Pathfinder putting out content every single day on our website. And of course, like all of our stuff, it's free. We want to start off with the one that aired right before our episode, Inspire Confidence, Gaming with Children. Monica, as both a mother and someone who works with children on a regular basis, has an intimate understanding with what it's like to work with children, and it is different than playing with adults because children's brain is not the same as adult brain. It's a lot of great tips on what to expect, what to encourage, what to not do if you're going to have young people at your role-playing table. Next up is Luis Loza, who did The Wandering Monsters, The Arena. Hey, if you're going to have an arena, you need something to fight in it. He follows up with a beautiful little map of an arena with several layers and, of course, a booth. And the things you can look forward to is Goblin Dogs, Barbarian Sisters, and quote-unquote, the Mad Beast. It goes ribbit in the dark.
Ribbit.
Next up, Alex! You did this one. Never stop role-playing. What does your article, Never Stop Role-Playing, mean?
It's my philosophy on how to role-play a table while also not stopping you from playing the game. I think often when we talk about people who divide themselves into either playing a game, I'm a role player, I want to role play, too often we get into this mindset that they can't be done at the same time, and I think that the game works better if everything you do is in character while you're sitting at the table. Like, my friends know when I'm not being in character and not being in character, but even when I'm joking around, I try to go out of my way to make sure that my jokes are something my characters would say to other people, and they reference things that are happening in a way that makes sense. So, like, if I'm sitting at the table and I'm playing my sorcerer, and I'm being silly and I want to talk to my friend, I might be like, oh, what's the deal with this robot thing? Like, why do we care? and like, the GM is off doing his other thing with the other people, and I'm talking in character, making conversation and being social, while also making sure what I'm doing is. Another thing that I like to do, this is my favorite trick, when I make knowledge checks to identify, or when I do any type of perception check, I try to ask I try to get my GM to give me the answer in a way that reflects how my character might look at the situation. So a really good example is that in Reign of Winter, I'm playing a bard who was bright-eyed, idealistic, and has become increasingly craven and paranoid as the adventure goes on, because it's a very brutal adventure path. With my many knowledges, if I identify a monster, the first thing GM is, if I got stuck in a dark alley with that monster, what's the one thing that I'd be terrified of it doing to me? And so she'll like, oh, well, that monster has blood drain. It's going to latch onto you and suck your blood out. And then I'll yell to my friends, oh my gosh, it suck our bloods and we're all going to die. And then it sort of reinforces the idea of who my character is and the sort of things that pops into his head when problems come up. And I think that's the strongest way to try to role play while also making sure that you're playing the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, some fantastic advice there. Next up, James Ballard comes with part 2 of his Fantastic Friends and Where to Find Them on Code Switch, where he continues to go into the different outsiders, where you can find them in the campaign setting, and some of their cultural origins. It's a nice exploration on some monsters and what you might do with them. Following up is Resources, Releases, and Rules Bloat from Anthony Lee, where he talks about the concept of rules bloat and whether or not we should be angry about it. It's he takes a very hard stance on this issue. I share his stance, but of course everybody knows that. And it's a nice little deep dive into what the concept of rules bloat is and the realities of publishing in today.
So, I don't know if this is going to sound biased or not, but I personally feel that anybody who has ever professionally published rules for any role-playing game probably shares similar sentiments to Anthony. I feel the same way. I think that it doesn't exist, and part of that is because making new rules is a way for me to make revenue, which is great for me, but also because I keep finding new and exciting ways to do things with the rules. I haven't run out yet. But again, I think you should read Anthony's take on it because it's really good.
Yeah. I mostly agree with Anthony that rules bloat is a self-correcting problem. If it was a problem, the company would go under because they couldn't make a profit selling them. Yeah. Next up, Andrew Marlowe gives us Monstrous Physique. Burst of Insight Invades. What? Where he goes over the Genius Guide to the Talented Bestiary and an example of building a monster in this third-party product. Again, this is from a Rogue Genius product. It's written by Stephen Rao and Steve Helt and Dan Dillon. And he goes into what to expect. I like Rogue Genius products. I have not read the Talented Bestiary myself, but hey, it looks interesting. Next up, Andrew Marlowe comes at us with a double whammy with his Burst of Insight. 5 easy campaign convention prep tips for GMs, where he shows off his... I'm so jealous of his stat blocks with the little hit point tickers. That's such a good thing. I do not have time to make those. He pre-rolls initiative, candy as miniatures, lots of more tips. Go check that out. And finally, Dear Dovahkiin, Lauren Sieg tackles the concept of starting a campaign from scratch and gives some advice for taking that very first deep dive into writing your own content. This is...
So I think that all of our content on the No Direction site is high quality, but Lauren constantly impressed me with the stuff she comes up with for her blogs. This article is so good.
Yes, it is amazing. I'm so glad that Lauren joined the network. She's only been with us a short time, but she's already made such a huge impact with her writing. It's some fantastic content, and it sort of fills in a little bit of the gap where our no question segment used to fill in, and we just unfortunately, as we've drifted a little bit away from no questions, her coming in and taking these really hard, in-depth, researched answers to user questions in a way that we just would not be able to handle on the podcast is fantastic. Lauren,
also,
we love you.
Yeah, we do. And also, let me point out that like Lauren takes user suggested questions. I believe she has an email for it, right?
She does. I don't know what it is, but you can contact us on Facebook. You can contact us at nodirection@hotmail.com, and we'll make sure that you get those questions to Lauren. Just go ahead and get
please.
those to us
Like,
any way possible.
she is ravenous for questions. If you think that your question isn't worthy of her, you're wrong. She wants it. So, like, you need to go, and if you have any question, just submit it to her, and you'll be so surprised how quickly it'll pop out. Like, usually, like, do it. Just do it. Pop them out. Give her the questions. She wants them. You need them answered.
And that does it for what's happening on the network. If you wish to get in touch with us, you can do so at Facebook. We can find facebook.com/nodirection. Of course, our wonderful website, nodirectionpodcast.com, where all of our shows and blogs are located. You can catch us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/nodirection. And of course, on our YouTube page, youtube.com/nodirectionshow.
We'll be waiting.
And that's going to wrap us up for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our guest, Amanda Hamon Kunz. Thank you for our lovely audience for giving us all those discussion and questions and keeping us on our toes. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Parent.
I'm Alexander Gunas, the Everyman Gamer.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.